It is. Yeah, thank you. Oh, now that pops up. Perfect. Yeah. Everyone did you get? All right, it is 6 o'clock, and we're going to start our planning and zoning meeting. Do we have a quorum?
Yes, sir, we do. We will move on to item 2, discuss, consider, and take any necessary action regarding election of officers. And if I may, so with the staff summary, I just wanted to give you all an update. We, per our charter, outlined in the charter, the commission is required to appoint a secretary from among its members. While the charter mandates this designation, it is important to note that the responsibilities do fall on the city secretary, our office, with the minutes, agendas, and whatnot. So even though we're going to appoint a secretary on the board, there's no real duties that you will have to actually do, unless obviously if we have the chair and the vice chairs out, the secretary would run the meeting if he or she was present. So the way that we will begin with nominations for chairman first. You will all have one, you can nominate one person, and then everyone will have one vote. And we will be hand voting during this process. So if you have any questions throughout it, just let us know.
Go ahead. So I just have one question. Can they not log in yet?
They should, to log into.
Into the meeting itself.
Are they not? They should be able to.
Were you able to? Okay.
Do you all see enter meeting on your screens of the voting? Are they all in? Doesn't show. Okay, y'all all should be in. We will be able to see that during the voting under the action items when we actually use the voting system, but you should all be in the system if you've selected enter meeting. Okay, technical issues. Okay, so Chairman Womokley, if you'd like to start the nominations for chairman.
All right, look for any nominations for chairman.
I would like to nominate Carrie for chairman, Carrie Womokley.
Do we need a second? For any other nominations for chairman?
And yes, sir, at this time, we will ask for a motion and a second, and then we will all hand vote.
All right. I need a motion to not approve.
A nomination to appoint you to chairman.
I would like to make a motion to nominate Carrie Womokley to the position of chairman.
All right.
I second the motion.
And all in favor, raise your hand. You can nominate yourself, Carrie.
I prefer not to.
Okay. All opposed? Okay. And that is going to Carrie again.
All right.
So lucky.
So now co-chair.
Correct. This
All
is
right.
for vice chair.
Okay, so looking for nominations for vice chair. And I'll nominate Autumn. Not that this was planned out. For vice chair.
I'll second that.
And now we vote.
Correct. All hand vote if you're in favor. Okay. Passes unanimously.
All right. And now for city secretary.
For secretary. I mean, y'all could take Vicky's job. She might, no.
I'd like to nominate Brett Bushnell for secretary.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? And,
All right.
okay.
Passes.
Passes. And on to agenda item 3, public comment. I do not have any public comment forms at this time. So we will move on to agenda item 3A, which is consent agenda for the minutes. And the new members, if you have not, even though you weren't present at that meeting, you can still vote if you've looked at the the agenda and saw the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And then,
So now we're on
yeah. All right, motion passes.
Okay. Item 5A, this is going to be training on Planning and Zoning Commission roles and responsibilities given by our city attorney here, Zinzi.
Good evening, everybody. For those of you that I haven't met, welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Zinzi Bonilla. I am an assistant city attorney for the City of Fate, and I am the Planning and Zoning Commission attorney. So you guys can get used to my face. I am tasked with providing an overview, a training for Planning and Zoning Commission roles and responsibilities. I'm going to try to keep this presentation short and lively as I possibly can. Most importantly, though, short. So you can ask or request a copy of the PowerPoint to be provided to you if there's anything on there that you felt maybe I didn't talk about or would be a good reference. So that's the purpose of it. Just ask for it. We can get you a copy. All right, let's get underway here because we're going to keep it short. All right, so there's a wide range of authority out there that allows cities to regulate land use. And here on the PowerPoint, you can see some is listed. But for your purposes, the Texas Local Government Codes, Chapter 211 to 213, they are specific to planning and zoning and most relevant for you all. There's a slide later on that's going to talk about how you're probably going to want to read through that and be familiar with it. What is the Planning and Zoning Commission, you may be asking yourself? Well, it was created, Texas law, in 1920s, and it is a governing body recommending zoning district boundaries and regulations for the city. It's you all are appointed members by the city council. Oh, there we go. At least 5 members are appointed for 2-year terms, and there are outlined in the law and Texas Local Government Code, like specific what you're responsible for, that consists of reviewing ordinances, amendments, plats and zoning requests, and making recommendations to the city council. So you all are a recommending body. The state gives the city authority in the local government code to create zoning districts, and that was challenged in 1926, and it was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. So the state is authorized to, enable this body. What is zoning, you may be asking? It's an exercise of police power that allows cities to regulate the rights of a private individual for the good of the community. So it's to be able to follow the comprehensive plan and regulate what is built or allowed in the city. What can they regulate, do you ask? Well, here listed is, buildings and other structures, printed percentage of a lot that may be occupied, like the lot use, size of yards and open spaces, population density, and location and use of buildings and other structures. So that's specifically identified in state law. The purpose of zoning is primarily compliance with the comprehensive plan. Regulations must be adopted by Planning and Zoning Commission in accordance with the comprehensive plan. What is the comprehensive plan, or why is it important, you may be asking yourself? Well, it's an important tool for a comprehensive plan of implementation. It creates legal descriptions, plat recordings, external protection and conservation for surrounding areas, adequate roads, utilities, drainage, open spaces, parks, and schools, and the like. What are the rules for these districts? They are divided into zoning districts, and each one has its own set of rules. That gets us into subdivision. You may be asking, what is a subdivision? It's a division of land into 2 or more parts to lay out subdivision of tracts or other lots and other parts such as streets and alleys. It's within city limits or within the extraterritorial jurisdiction, also known as the ETJ. And when that is subdivided, it is how we come up with plats. What is a plat, you may be thinking? A plat is defined as a preliminary plat, a general plat, a final plat, and a replat. So those are the types of plat applications that will be before the commission. There could also be additional requirements to subdivision platting located in the city's Unified Development Ordinance. So you're going to be familiar with that as well. There have been what we're calling recent platting law changes, but the most important and relevant for the commissioners to know is that once you receive a plat application, it must be approved with conditions, or disapproved within 30 days from when it was filed. If that doesn't happen, then it'll be automatically approved. And so we want to avoid that. That's the goal, is to remain in compliance with the law. And so be very mindful of the 30 days. So once it's filed, we have 30 days to make a recommendation. And this clock applies for both planning and zoning and the city council. So it applies for both governing bodies.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Is it 30 days total, or does planning and zoning have 30 and then council have another 30, or is it 30 total?
The clock applies to both governing bodies. So it's 30 days for planning and zoning, and then once it gets sent over to council, then they have 30 days as well.
Can I ask one more question?
Reminder for all the
sorry.
new folks, the button in here will turn on your mic. Let's make sure that the mic is used, okay?
Thank you.
When does the shot clock begin? And I'm going to put out an example. I know I said I wasn't going to ask questions, but I am. Let's say tomorrow somebody files for a zoning change. Does the planning and zoning department have any control over when that gets filed? I'm just saying, so if it's tomorrow, we don't meet for another 30 days, so.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. HB 3699 actually helped planning departments, because 3167 was pretty harsh as far as what the shot clock applied to. And so the filing date is actually when the application is submitted, but it also allows, and it reiterates the fact that cities can establish submittal schedules. So we actually only accept plat applications one day in the month. It's generally the third Tuesday of the month, because the timing of that puts it at the Planning and Zoning Commission, usually 29 or 30 days after that. So we have time to process it, evaluate it, make a recommendation to y'all, and then you make your decision on that 30th day. And then, as Lorna was asking, once that recommendation is made, it restarts that shot clock for another 30 days to go to council.
Well, the trainer learned something as well. Okay, thank you. Yes, and so I put up the lovely slide that kind of answers that question as well. So I'm trying to be short, so we're going to flip through these. All right, so that's what's most relevant for you all. There's limited approval standards for commissioners as far as what you can approve. You must approve a plat if it conforms to the general plan or the comprehensive plan of the city, and it meets the subdivision ordinance regulations. And so if it does those two things and it's in accordance, then it needs to be approved. Let's see. All right, we're going to jump into procedures. Understanding your job. I don't know how familiar all the new commissioners are or background, but I'm just going to try to hit the high points. We're going to go over let's see here. Okay, we're going to go over the role of the chair, the procedures, and make sure that you at least have heard about the Texas Open Meetings Act. That one is going to be important to be familiar with, because that's going to come up a lot, so you're going to hear about that one. So let's see. The roles of the chair are to open the meeting, keep the order by following the agenda, call for the votes, and announce the votes. So that's what the chair's primary role is. There will be public hearings, and at a public hearing, the staff will give a presentation on the application. The applicant has an opportunity to present if they would like, if they choose to, and at that time is when commissioners can ask questions of either the staff or of the applicant. And then once the public hearing, and then after that happens, then it's open to the public, and the chair will handle that part, but it'll be open to the public. They have an opportunity to speak, and then at that point is when it'll be closed to the public, and then the commissioners can discuss and act. Let's see, who can speak? Oh,
Go back to that.
yes, of course.
I kind of want to just reiterate some of the bullets here, because it's important as far as like the
Yeah,
quorum
you,
of the meeting.
go ahead, my co-trainer right
Thank you,
here.
thank you. I appreciate that. Some of the folks who have not been on a panel or a commission like this before, it may be a little bit of an intimidating experience, especially in cases where, and I've been there, I've been a plan director for a while, you get a room full of people who most likely don't like what's going on. You know, that's usually what brings people out into the meetings. And so as you manage yourself and as you manage your role in the meeting, it's important to kind of look at some of these bullets as far as how you interact with staff, how you interact with the applicant, as well as with the public when they come up, because they may not, you know, they may be kind of emotional. There may be something that they have a personal stake in the outcome of the meeting. So they may want to, you know, really express themselves in a pretty emotional way. And it's important for folks on the commission to really kind of manage their response to that. This isn't a debate. You're not going to be going back and forth with the public. It's really their chance to voice their concerns, and you just kind of listen. But it isn't like a back and forth when it comes to the public hearing. So I just want to make sure you all knew that. You'll get some exposure as the weeks and the months come on how that works. But these are just some important indications and suggestions on how you interact with the various members of these meetings, both staff and the public. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was very important to note. Yes, it's not a debate, so it's just listening to what the public has to say, and then you can have the discussion amongst the commissioners. All right, I took a couple notes myself. Thank you. All right, so most importantly, to speak, the chair has to recognize you. They, speak. And then you get the opportunity to talk. All of the commissioners get a chance to speak before someone gets a second chance to speak. Let's see, better to give, as it relates to public hearings, better to give someone to speak than to not let them speak. And the chair has the authority as far as how long they have to speak. I think typically we do 3 minutes, but the chair could decide to give them more time if that's necessary. Their discretion. Most of the motions that you'll be dealing with are motions for approval or denial. Here's an example of, the language that's used when you are going to speak and, bring forth that motion. There are other motions as indicated on this PowerPoint, but we're not going to go into those because 99% of the time you'll be dealing with approval or denial motions. So this part is what's important to make note of. Your responsibilities on the commission are pretty much just to be prepared, be ready, and what that looks like is reading the packet before the meeting and being, knowledgeable or familiar about the property or the application and what the issue is that's going to be coming before the commission, to be fair, honest, and ethical, and most importantly, objective. So I'm going to make a note of that. Now we're going to jump into what's going to be referred to as TOMA. You may hear it in the acronym form, but it's the Texas Open Meetings Act. So what is a meeting, you may be asking yourself? It is TOMA, Texas Open Meetings Act, will be triggered when there is the governing body and public business being discussed. And so this kind of sounds like it's a no-brainer, but it may be important to think about when you're outside of here. Like you could be having a meeting if there is a quorum of you all in present and discussing business. And so if that's happening, then that triggers the Texas Open Meetings Act, and that makes everything subject to the public. So let's see, we'll go over this one, trying to make it short. What is a quorum? So 4 members, regular or alternate, must be present during a meeting to constitute a quorum of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Things to think about that you wouldn't inherently think was a quorum is like emails or text messages. So if there's like a group of you all talking about business in a group chat, that is a meeting. And so that's when Open Meetings Act would apply. Please, go right ahead.
I will say that that can also apply to social media, which is often when a lot of discussions happen. So be very mindful now that you're in this official role, your interaction with social media, especially if there are multiple members, that can become, that can actually effectively become a quorum if 4 or more of the members are kind of talking about the same thing in the same group or whatnot. So.
Thank you for that. That leads us to our next slide, a walking quorum. This is what you cannot do. It's what you do not want to do is any attempt, deliberate attempt to try to not be a quorum and try to intentionally do that to avoid the Texas Open Meetings Act. That's a walking quorum and you are subject to criminal punishment. So be mindful of that. The best practice and recommendation is to restrict communications about public business in only to this type of setting, formal setting, talking about public business. So general rule is just try not to talk about that, and especially be mindful of who all's around when you're talking about it. That's also another important component, and just make sure that you've heard it from me. And then lastly, do not hit reply all to emails. So that's a nice little rule for you. All right, we're going to jump into the Public Information Act. What's important about that, how it applies to you all, is to just be mindful of what the Public Information Act applies to, and its correspondences. It could be anything from a text message, an email, a handwritten note that you've sent or written out. It could also be subject to a Public Information Act, and so to be mindful when you're in communications. Let's see, all right.
Can I say something on that one?
Oh, yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I would just like for the newer members, if you've never dealt with open meetings records, one of the things about using personal devices is if we are ever like involved in like litigation, your personal computer can end up being seized by like the other side as an exhibit. So I would just caution to make sure to do everything through the city stuff if you can.
That's a great point. Thank you. All right. Okay, we're going to get into ethics. And so the City of Fate has a code of ethics. This is also something that you're going to want to look up and read and be knowledgeable about. And pretty much it outlines what you can't do that's unethical, or it outlines unethical behavior. And so that's for you on this slide. What I want to make note of is the definition of substantial interest, because that results in a conflict, and when you're conflicted out, then it's your duty to note that and make us aware, and you fill out an affidavit, and there's a process. But if you're ever wondering what is a substantial interest, or if you have a substantial interest, the Code of Ethics, along with the statute, defines that for you. And so the first one on this slide is like a business interest. So if you own 10% or more voting stock, if you have $15,000 or more in the fair market value of the business entity or funds received, that's kind of like a given. One thing that maybe you wouldn't just know to think about is if you have a substantial interest in real property. And so that gives a definition there. And you should also consider that if you have a substantial interest under the Code of Ethics as a relative, it also applies to your relatives. So that's important to note. I want to highlight specifically, which is different than the state statute, in the Code of Ethics, Section 2310C. It specifically says that you would have a substantial interest in any real property if you're within 200 feet of that property and the subject of the land use matter. As it relates to zoning applications, the planning and development, they send out notice letters to everyone within 200 feet. And so if you were ever to receive that notice letter, then the code of ethics, the FATE code of ethics says that you are conflicted and you have a substantial interest. And then this talks about how you disclose that, and that's a process, not a process, but there's an affidavit you fill out and list everything, and then you make a note of it and you abstain from being involved. Let's see. And this also includes whether it positively or negatively affects you. So sometimes when you look at the definition of it, it kind of comes across like if there's a financial gain, but you also, the state statute says you have to be mindful of if you're negatively impacted. So any kind of special economic effect, that's the legal language, special economic effect, then you want to make sure you let us know. And this diagram just kind of illustrates for you what first degree, because the state statute says that if you have a substantial interest in the person related to you in the first degree, so the dark blue is the first degree. And with that, I got through this, and everyone's awake and alert and looking at me, so I'm going to take that as a good sign. I appreciate your time. Look forward to working with you all, and after the meeting, I can come to a formal introduction. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions about that? We kind of flew through it. There's a lot there, and we'll make sure that you get everybody gets a copy of the presentation. You can read over it. Of course, you can reach out to us at staff afterwards if there's a specific question that, as you read it, comes up and you want some clarification on. But does anybody have any questions right now on this?
So no question, but just a point for everybody on the board. Please, if you have anything, reach out to Ryan. Not only is he the employee, but he's the great resource for us as a board, and he does everything he can to make time, for you.
And I just want to let y'all know, so we follow the state of Texas retention policy. So if you take notes during the meeting, if you don't want to hold on to them, you can pass them over to me after the meeting, and I can hold on to them until it has to be approved. The minutes have to be approved, and then we still have to hold them for 90 days. So if you don't want to hold on to those, feel free to drop them off to me. All right, Mr. Chair. Yes.
I'm sorry, so are the notes I just took?
Yes, those will need to be kept. And like I said, if you're comfortable with keeping them, absolutely, yes, you can
Okay.
absolutely keep them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so now, item number 6.
Item 6A, this is an application for a specific use permit to allow for a landscape contractors and supply business on Northstar Road, SUP 25-001.
All right, we have a staff summary.
Yes, sir, we do. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Wells. I'm the Director of Planning Development Services here at the City of Fate. For the new members, welcome aboard. I'm really excited for you to be here and look forward to working with you. For the old members, yeah, you're doing okay too. I like you. All right, so tonight I'm going to be giving the staff presentation for the Wiley Decorative Rocks and More specific use permit. This is project ID SUP 25001. So this is a specific use permit, and I'll explain real quick. A specific use permit is a special authorization granted ultimately by the city council that is kind of above and beyond your standard zoning entitlements. So you have your zoning districts, but then in some cases, the zoning districts allow uses with an additional authorization, which is called a specific use permit. So for this first meeting, you guys kind of a complicated one, so I'll try to walk through this as best as I can to explain it. But I just want to make sure you're aware that this is an additional authorization for a proposed use within an existing zoning district. It's not a zoning change in and of itself. So the request tonight is a specific use permit for the authorization of a landscape contractors and supply business on a 2.52 acre parcel on Northstar Road. This actually is the result of a zoning violation letter that I wrote and delivered to the property owner on April 8th, 2025. We'll get into some of those details in a moment. So the property in question is zoned agriculture. That's our most basic, like foundational zoning district. It's also the holding zoning district if a property hasn't otherwise been actively zoned something else. So about 50% of our city is still zoned agriculture because of that fact. A tree nursery use is permitted outright based on Table 4.1-1 of the Unified Development Ordinance. Table 4.1-1 is a really big table that has a bunch of different land uses in the rows in all of the different zoning districts in the columns. In each land use for each zoning district, it's determined whether it's an allowed use or not an allowed use or allowed with a specific use permit. The reason I mentioned tree nursery is that the property owner, who is here tonight, came to us a number of years ago, and so long ago that I actually forgot about it for some time until recently, until this kind of came up. And he came to us and said, hey, I have this property, and I'd like to put a tree nursery on the property. Is that okay? And so he came and asked, make sure that it was all right. We looked at the code. Yes, tree nursery is permitted in the ag zone, no problem at all. God be with you. So that started out, and the tree nursery was established on the property. However, over time, staff noticed that some other uses that were relatively related, but not specifically a tree nursery, started to develop on the property. For example, there was just some other landscaping materials that one could consider related to that, but we start to kind of get outside of the definition of a tree nursery as we are required to enforce it. So we started to observe some other uses on the property. We documented that, and then earlier this year, we decided to kind of move on that and say, hey, this has really kind of gone beyond what we initially discussed and agreed to. And so the zoning violation letter was prepared and sent. And it was again, we don't go straight to punishment. Like, it isn't the way that our department works. It's really a kind of a notification. Hey, we're kind of outside of those bounds. Let's work together to kind of correct this one way or another. And in the letter, which is actually in the exhibits to the packet that y'all received, there were two options given. One was to revert back to the tree nursery and just go back to kind of what we all agreed to and what the code allows. Or we can look at this as essentially what's an unlisted use. And ultimately, that would require the specific use permit. So we're going to talk about this unlisted use classification. I can't even tell you the number of uses that are listed in the code, but there's a lot. Almost anything you could think of. Nowadays, there's some things that you haven't thought of. But in this case, a landscape contractors and supply use type actually isn't listed in the UDO. And so there's a process in the UDO, Unified Development Ordinance, that allows the director to classify unlisted uses. So if there's a use that's proposed or in existence and it's not in the code, I use my professional discernment to figure out which zoning districts are allowed or basically are compatible with that use and what standards would apply. And so prior to the issuance of the zoning violation letter, I created an internal memo, which is also an exhibit, that basically identifies the landscape contractors and supply use, defines it, and then it identifies what zoning districts would be compatible with that use. And so the agricultural zone and the general commercial zone were the two that I find are compatible based on what you see in the region and the potential impact from those uses. Within that memo, I also identified that in both of those cases, the agricultural and general commercial zones require a specific use permit for this type of use. A, because it's a new use that we don't have defined, and B, there's the potential for it to not be compatible with surrounding uses because of the open storage of materials, the traffic. Yes, it's not much traffic, but the traffic that it generates. And so the SUP allows a discretionary element to it, meaning that you and the city council have the chance to look at the specific circumstance of the property and determine whether that use is reasonable and compatible with all of the standards. So that led to tonight's SUP application. Again, determining the unlisted use is works for the agricultural zoning district and identifying this as a zoning violation and identifying that unlisted use as what's going on here and giving the path forward to try to either legitimize it or basically say it's not going to be acceptable in this location. Here's an aerial image of the location on Northstar Road. The property, of course, is outlined in yellow. The property is a single lot, zoned agriculture, and it's on Northstar Road, about 560 feet south of the intersection with County Line Road, so at the very northern end of the city of Fate limits. In the Unified Development Ordinance, there are a number of approval criteria when considering to approve or deny or recommend approval or denial of a specific use permit. Again, these are the criteria that staff look at to make a determination. It's also the criteria that I would encourage you to really kind of lean on when determining whether the SUP is acceptable for your recommendation. So I'm going to go through these and list both the criterion and then also what staff's findings were related to that criterion. It's spelled out in the narrative of the staff summary, but I'll reiterate it here in this presentation. So first criterion is whether the project meets the purpose of the zoning district in which it will be located and all the criteria and regulations. So in this case, the base zoning of the property is agriculture. The definition is of the agricultural zone, in short, is to accommodate agricultural uses on large acreage, generally 5 acres minimum. This property is smaller than 5 acres, but that's because it was annexed into the city after it was already subdivided into less than 5 acre lots. The other part of the definition is that the district provisions allow compatible agricultural uses that are in keeping with the rural character of the neighborhoods. Again, this is a new and unlisted use, and so my determination was that the landscape contractors and supply use is compatible in the agricultural zone with an SUP, plus additional conditions of approval that I'll go over in a moment. Criteria B and E are somewhat similar, so we kind of lump them together here. B is that the project complements or is compatible with surrounding uses, and E is that it's in scale with the existing neighborhood. What we've found over the years is that on Northstar Road specifically, most of those properties are zoned agriculture. They're generally within 1.25 to 2.5 acres in size. There are a lot of home-based businesses and construction-related businesses along that road. Most of those are from when that neighborhood was in the county and was annexed in, and we've considered all those businesses grandfathered in. We're not going to come in and suddenly make them shut down their livelihood because it got annexed into the city. And so there's already a lot of some of that kind of light industrial commercial type of use that works within the existing neighborhood. This parcel specifically is completely covered with overhead utility lines, and so you can't really do anything with the property. You can't put any permanent structures on the property, and so that's why staff found that this type of use is really being able to get some sort of value and some sort of productivity out of that parcel. Criteria C and F, again, are similar. C is that the project adequately mitigates traffic impacts, and F is that it mitigates any adverse impacts due to access, parking, service areas, etc. There are some conditions of approval that I'll list in a moment that require site improvements to improve access and circulation on the site. And our findings are that there's pretty limited traffic related to this use. There are some larger vehicles that will deliver and pick up the materials, but as far as traffic volume, we don't see really a lot of traffic volume throughout the day going to this site or any other similar sites. Criterion D is that the project contributes to, enhances, and promotes the quality of life for residents of the development and adjacent properties. What we find is that this proposal provides a commercial service not currently located in Fate, and is what we find to be a productive use of otherwise very limited land because of those overhead power easements. And there were mitigations to the proposed or the expected impacts included in the conditions of approval. So those are the criteria, again, that we evaluated that are straight out from the code and summarized in the staff summary as well as in this presentation. A specific use permit is a public notice requiring item. So as Zenzi was mentioning in her training, there are a couple things we do to notice these items to the public. One, we send out a notification to the newspaper. This is the Blue Ribbon, the Royce City Blue Ribbon News, at least 15 days prior to the hearing. And so we submitted the notice and they published it in the required time. We also send a mailed notice to all properties within 200 feet of the subject property and give those property owners or anybody really an opportunity to contact us and let us know if they have any issues, if they support or oppose the project. And so this is a map showing the subject property and all of the properties that received a mailed notice. In total, we sent 13 mailed notices. As of this evening, we received no responses either for or against the proposal. Some of you who have attended P&Z or city council meetings before probably know that we endeavor to run a fiscal analysis on most of the applications that come in, just to understand how these different projects generate or have an impact fiscally on the city's bottom line, on the city's future. In this case, because it's a very specific single site, we didn't have any financial data available from it. And generally, the sales tax data that we are able to obtain, it can't drill down into a single specific property because that's proprietary. So we just didn't have enough information to adequately run a fiscal analysis. In a general sense, however, we believe that if you compare a straight-up tree nursery to a property that would have landscape supply and tree nursery and other materials, there'd probably be a greater variety of product, and then that would probably render a higher taxable sales. But we don't have any quantitative analysis outcomes to support that. So with all of that, staff do recommend approval of this SUP application with conditions, which are as follows. There's 6 of them. Condition number 1 is that a decomposed granite or similar compact gravel material will be shown on a site plan to create internal drive aisles throughout the site. This will be addressed at the site plan phase. So if this application were to be approved at the city council, the applicant would have to come back with a site plan, which is an administrative review, meaning staff would review it and approve it or deny it. Number 2 is that a designated location for delivery and pickup of material shall be shown and labeled on the site plan. The area shall be concrete, meaning a concrete surface. Number 3, they must label the designated, a label designating a location for vehicles to be stored. All vehicles shall be parked in an orderly fashion in a designated location to maintain an upscale appearance. Number 4 and 5, I added just a very minor time constraint to these 2 recommended conditions. That's not what's listed in the staff summary, but my ask would be that in any kind of motion, if it were to be a recommendation for approval with conditions, that you add those 2 specific items so that we have a constrained time to achieve these conditions. Number 4 is that within 120 days, the applicant shall provide a notarized document from the power company that owns the transmission lines that they have granted approval for the metal shed that's currently on site to be located within the power easement. This metal shed is actually on wheels, and so we granted that earlier on when the tree nursery was being established, as long as it wasn't a permanent, affixed structure. Our understanding was that they could have it within the power easement. We just want to make sure we have documentation of that. Number 5, within 120 days, screening shall be provided along Northstar Road and along the northern property boundary. Screening shall extend the length of the proposed material storage locations. Prior to acceptance of any structural permits, i.e. a fence permit, a type 1 site plan application shall be submitted and approved by the city. The reason we talk about the Northstar Road and the northern property boundary, Northstar Road's a public right-of-way. We generally require screening along public rights-of-way. The northern property boundary is where all the material storage is taking place. The southern property boundary is where all the trees are being stored. That generally doesn't require screening, but open storage of materials does require screening. And finally, number 6, the site plan submittal and operation of the site shall conform to the provisions and restrictions listed in the March 23rd, 2023 transmission line and easement encroachment agreement listed in the packet as Exhibit 4. So there are some constraints and restrictions from the power company already that are in that agreement and are provided as a reference. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions directed at me. The applicant is here tonight. They don't have any presentation, but I do believe they want to come and introduce themselves and make themselves available for questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Right, applicant?
And if you can just state your name for the record at the microphone
Good
there.
evening, everybody. My name is Norito Jorge. I'm the owner of the Wiley Decorative Rocks and More. And this is a family-owned business, so that we want to bring to the city of Fayette, because like Ryan said, there is nothing such like contractor landscape supplies in the zone. So I'm hoping to bring business to you guys, and we all get benefit from that. And I really like the opportunity to do business with the city of Fayette and get to know you more. And Ryan mentioned that I need to prove or show the granted permit from the power line, so which I have it with me, and I'm pretty sure I already gave it to Zara. So it's on the file. So, and I'm okay with all the conditions that you request, like concrete on the entrance or the parking lot, the screening, and granite on the parking stuff, and so I had no issues with that as long as you let me work with you guys. So, and I don't know what else to do. You got any questions or something?
I was going to say, board have any questions?
It's my first time too, so.
I don't have any questions, but I wanted to say thank you for coming here, because this is something that I didn't even know we could even have the possibility, and I'm always looking for decorative rocks and things like that, so I'm kind of excited about this. So
There you go.
hopefully everything goes to your favor.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, again, thank you for coming, and I thank you for working with Ryan and his team. I know the planning and zoning regulations, especially for the new members, for you, us first-timers here, are not always clear, so I appreciate you working with Ryan and his team to bring a family-owned business to Fayette, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
All right, it is 6:47, and look at opening the public hearing.
And I do not have any comment forms at this time.
All right, it is 6:47, and we will close the public hearing. With that, does the board have anything they would like to discuss?
You know I do. Just two questions for Ryan. Do you remember, I know you alluded to it, but you didn't give us a date. When were they originally issued a tree nursery permit?
So the tree nursery use is permitted outright, so they didn't have to actually get a permit. They just came to the window or the counter in our office just to make sure that they were good before they started doing things on the property.
Okay,
And I just confirmed with them at the time, yeah, you're fine.
okay. And then, do you remember when we annexed them in?
I don't. I was actually looking for that information. I didn't give myself enough time to actually find it, but it was before I got here, which was 4.5 years ago. So
Okay.
it was quite some time ago.
Okay.
A lot of annexation took place within 2013 to 2019, so I imagine it took place within that window.
Yes. Thank you so much. That was my only two.
Brian, I have a question. You said that over time you noticed that they were doing other stuff. How long has that been going on, and have you gotten any complaints from anyone?
Good question. I think we've honestly noticed it for at least 18 months. We never received any complaints, and so that's why it was kind of a low priority for us. But full disclosure, the thing that kind of triggered, hey, we kind of got to do something now, and we talked to Rito about it, and it's all just communication. We noticed that there were some concrete mixers on there, and that's like a little beyond like nursery landscape scale type of stuff. And so we're like, okay, we need to kind of reach out and just rein this back in a little bit more. But we've never received any complaints from anybody about it.
Yeah, I have one. I think if, as far as the SUP goes, is this like, in conversations with the applicant, is this like a sufficient kind of request for any like future business they tend to do? I guess we just don't want to have them coming back, since it would be a third time with them coming back in a handful of years.
Sure, so in the April 2nd memo, there's actually a definition of this use, and that's what we use to identify what's compatible and what's not with that use. When we do a future update to the Unified Development Ordinance, we'll incorporate those elements into the actual code. And so this is kind of a holdover for now. So anybody who would want to introduced this use to the city, I would reference this memo, but it does talk about what exactly can occur within that use category, and then planning staff would make that professional determination if it's compatible or if it's not.
And I have just a housekeeping item. So on the packet, on page 21, it notes page 22, sorry, page 22. It notes on a document from, I assume it's DDS or BBS Group, that it notes that they're in the city of Royce City versus Fate.
Yeah, I bet you I can explain that. The funny thing is, the addressing for properties in Fate, the United States Postal Service does not follow city boundaries when they determine addressing. Some of you might experience this yourselves. So they might say it says 235 Northstar Road, Royce City. It's in the Fate city boundary, but the address is actually addressed Royce City per USPS standards. They could put Fate there and it would be legitimate, but there's a bunch of eastern Fate that's addressed Royce City. There's a bunch of western Fate that's addressed Rockwall. It's something we're actually trying to correct through federal legislation right now, but for the time being, this comes up a lot. People call me, am I in Royce City or am I in Fate? You're in Fate, but you're addressed Royce City. That's what's happening there.
All right, thank you.
Just kind of expanding upon a little bit of what Brett said. For SUPs, are these permanent or are these temporary? Do they have an expiration date?
SUPs are permanent unless otherwise stated in the ordinance.
Okay.
Now, the ordinance is not before you tonight because you're making a recommendation to council. My practice is that in the ordinance, there's a clause that states that should the proposed use cease to exist for X number of days or months, then the SUP can be brought back to council for expiration. It will remain in place and active until that action were to occur, though.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I didn't want it to be time constrained depending on when the next update to the UDO
Sure.
happens. So I
Sure.
just want to make sure they don't have to come back.
Nope, they shouldn't have to come back.
And by the way, Chairman, my electric is through our city, just so you know, I can't use Fate.
If there's nothing else to discuss, consider taking a motion to approve.
Hope I get this right. I would like to make a motion to approve with the conditions as presented here tonight.
Oh, yeah, I'll second it.
We got a second? Okay. All vote. And motion passes. Item number 7.
Item 7, Director of Planning and Development Services, report announcements pertaining to city activities, upcoming events, future legislative activities, and other matters related thereto.
I don't really have anything tonight. There was recent passage of legislation that does affect land use. We may give you some updates about that in the future as we digest those and process those. They may change some of our practices a little bit, but nothing specific tonight, so thank you.
All right, with that, take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
One more. All right, motion passes. It is 6:54.